for our first speaker, Elder Yedidiyah Hawkins.
Shalom. Y'all may be seated. Boy, everybody's not as loud as they were the last time we spoke up here. I mean, what's wrong? Cat got your tongue? No. Anyway, well, we're going to keep plowing on here because the world that we're living in, the danger is continuing to grow stronger and stronger. Now, I'm not going to go into any detail about the draft right now, but I need, you young men who would like to talk more about this, come and see me about the draft and about what to do about it if approached. But you do not have to stop and talk to anybody. They were stopping people at United parking lot, the young men. They were stopping young men in the parking lot and trying to coerce them to joining the military. Okay, so they are doing this. And women, you're not beyond this. They're going to be sending recruiters to you too. They're sending recruiters to hospitals right now, getting the doctors to where they have to go. And I guarantee you their degree doesn't prevent them from pulling selected services there. So they're ready gearing up for it, which we're going to be covering in the articles a lot more about what's developing in order leading up to some of this going on. But right now there's 2 bills in Congress that are being passed through in the middle of the night while you're sleeping with the draft. So they're covering it up with other different things, but it is definitely going through the Congress at this time. But I want to continue on where we left off here. We've seen about these armies that are building up, how they're assembling their weapons. They're starting to assemble themselves together here to counter what they deem as a threat to their society, their so-called society, which is, of course, against the United States and the democracy that the United States is trying to push throughout the world at this time. Where you have other nations that don't agree with the United States. They agree that their way is better. Well, the United States is agreeing, well, their way is more proven and better than the other nation's way, and therefore you have conflict. Well, more religions. There's been more wars over different religions than any other point of war in history. So religion was the number one reason why they've had more wars in this world, which you can see right now what's going on. But the EU needs its own army. Vergen says, it says the European Union needs an army of its own because soldiers, not diplomats, are key to being an international power. This was from the Vice President of the European Commission in charge of enterprise and industry. It says, we have to realize that we are seen by the outside world as a great continental power that cannot take care of its responsibilities for reasons that the world outside cannot easily understand, he added. The question asked in the world is not how many diplomats can you send, but instead the question is being asked, how many troops can you send in order to reinforce a diplomatic solution? Well, this is what's presently going on in Europe right now. How Europe is pleading, and the European Union, this is expanded to 25 nations right now. It was 15, but now it's 25, where they're wanting, Europe again is wanting their own military. And yes, this is including Germany again. It says in another article I have, Spain, Germany, ramp up defense cooperation. Spain and Germany agreed to boost cooperation in defense on the sidelines of a summit meeting here Monday. It was held on a Monday between Spanish Prime Minister Jose Luis Rodriguez Zapatero and German Chancellor Gerhard Schroeder. It says Spanish Defense Minister Jose Bono and German counterpart Peter Struck said in a joint statement in Berlin would extend a loan of 108 combat tanks to 2016 in order to intensify existing cooperations between both countries in the field of conventional defense technology. As part of its military overhaul, Spain wishes to increase cooperation with Germany via future acquisition programs in several fields, including the Eurofighter jet aircraft program, naval communications, and missiles for Tiger helicopters. Well, this Eurofighter, okay, what this Eurofighter is, it's actually a fighter jet that doesn't put off that fire from the back of the jet to where it makes it almost impossible for a heat-seeking missile to shoot it down. You see, this is one of the most advanced weapons that they've created of an air fighter. Well, you see, this is all being designed in Europe. The U.S. wants its hand on it. But I want to say one thing about this European army. He made a comment in here. He says, the EU requires an army to support its foreign policies, but the United States Army would not be the model. He said the United States Army would not be the model. And this was back to that article on the EU about needing their army. They specifically don't want to be modeled according to how the United States is. Well, you see how Europe now has stepped into this game and now is building themselves up to be a major power in this world, and how they're actually wanting to establish themselves to counter the United States. You notice everything that they do in the articles that we read, it's all done to counter somebody. It's just like an enemy out here where they're going to try to tell you to do certain things in order to counter this business deal that may be taking place with somebody. It's like in the business of real estate and trying to monopolize the economy. Well, it's a cutthroat world, and they're going to go out there and cut whoever's throat they have to do to gain riches for themselves and to do this. Well, it's the same thing what the nations are doing. It's the dirty business of dealing in weapons. The best probably money that's made is being a legal arms dealer. A person being an arms dealer. You can sell missiles and weapons. You can buy a missile on the market for $250,000 right now. Anywhere from $150,000 to $250,000, you can buy yourself a nice, great missile that can shoot several miles away and everything else. So if you have $1 million, you can buy yourself 4 missiles. So you see, but what my point is saying this is a big business. This is a business. That's why Germany, Spain ramp up defense cooperation. Well, at the same time now, taking a step back here, I wanted to add a little more color to this about what Russia's just doing. Now, this is just this week, all right? Russia hints at strategic bomber sale to China. Remember how we talked about the alliance between Russia, China, India, and Brazil, all right? That alliance, it says a top Russian military officer raised here January 13th the possibility of selling strategic bombers to China as the two prepare to hold their first ever joint military maneuvers. If they've got enough money, they should buy some of Russia's latest warplanes. They should buy some of Russia's latest warplanes. Well, China, India deepens defense ties. Now, this came out of CNN.com here. It says China and India have agreed to deepen defense cooperation during a visit by Indian Army Chief. Chinese state media reported on Wednesday relations between the giant neighbors and former foes. Well, you see how they're all banding together here. They're joining up, and it's obviously, and a person would have to be a fool not to believe all what the prophets have spoken, because the prophets have really identified and made clear of exactly what is going to take place, where this war is going to start, which it has started already. Everybody ought to know when the United States went into Iraq and the things that were going on there, all part of this. This is all part of a plan that's going on. You have a military power within the Asian continents. You have a military giant growing in Europe right now, and then you have the next military giant right now that Yahweh spoke about in Revelations that shows it would make war, it will be crushed to pieces, and it will break with the iron teeth that supports it, which is also inspired and led by the Catholic Church. Because I guarantee you they are not Kanzi Aston's objectors. And I have other articles that we're going to be bringing out later on about the Vatican and their diplomatic relations with the nations. But there was a few key things that the Pope made comments to about the relations with the Catholic Church and the Vatican with these other nations. And it goes right along with Revelations. But all these nations right now, understand, all these nations are gathering together. There's a purpose. There's a reason why they're doing what they're doing here. All right? I would like to read this next article to you from the Washington Times. It says, Bush calls for globe cooperation. Bush calls for globe cooperation. this is pretty much in a nutshell what they're trying to counter. It says, President Bush yesterday challenged international leaders to create a new world order, declaring pre-September 11 multilateralism outmoded and asserting that freedom from terrorism will come only through excuse me,